All right, I think we're here this morning. Sounds like audio is good on my little test stream, so I think we'll get going. This morning is, I don't have much prepared. I have a little ARP going right now, and I'll go over a little bit of what I have on my Micro Monster and play a little bit. But otherwise, we're gonna be building up on the rack some stuff for the group jam here on Sunday. I think maybe also worth noting is I'm using a WobblyCam GoPro today, which doesn't have the best video, but it is locked in place kind of above my head, and I'll be able to place a view on the rack when we go to do more. So, also bear with me, it's the morning, and I'm still a little groggy, and drinking coffee. So, and good morning, Andy. Good morning, Mr. Wabbit. Thank you guys for joining me today. And good morning, Yamchi86. And yeah, Mr. Wabbit, the GoPro does pretty well once you put it over to ProTune. You kind of have to configure it a little bit to get the balances right and all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, it kind of does a crap job with the lights and low light level, but it's not too bad. And then this is a GoPro Hero 7, so it's not even one of the newest GoPros, so it does okay. Alright, I think I'll go over a little bit of how I have it set up in Bitwig. So up here in Bitwig, we actually have 4 tracks right now. One is the Micro Monster, which is this guy. which is a fun little patch that takes advantage of the Linstruments X, Y, and Z and has some nice resonant kind of wobble to it, which I think sounds real nice. Again, that's the Micro Monster over here, and obviously I have some basic controls, but the patch itself is pretty locked in here, but pretty good response on the filter. And I have high resonance to make that wobble come out. So that's a pretty fun little patch there. All right, and back over to the Bitwig, we have an Analog Lab pluck going, which is the pluck and ARP going rather, which is playing this little sequence down here. Which is just kind of noodling around in the D-Dorian. And no worry, Andy, even if you have to leave and all that, we're just messing around here today, so no worries. So anyway, ARP is kind of just playing, having some fun here, and then we have a version of Generate. And Generate is the same VST I was kind of using in the last couple times. Which works really well for MPE, and particularly for this kind of lead sound that I've made here. So it's been one of my go-to VSTs for lead sound on an instrument. And you guys haven't heard yet, but I also have Piano Tech going. And that, I think, sounds really good. Mr. Wabbit asks, how are you switching channels on Bitwig to play each sound from the Linstrument, or am I switching channels on the Linstrument? So I'm actually changing it mostly via a mouse that's kind of hidden below camera shot here. But also on the Stream Deck, I have buttons to change track. I'll pull that up real fast on the Stream Deck. All right, so this is my Stream Deck setup here, and if I go into the top row is basically a set of Mr. Rabbit. The top row is basically like a set of pages I can go through for stream and stuff. The left side is app, and under app I have my main Bitwig ones, which are this little keyboard guy, a mixer, scene, and clip. And so if I go into the mixer, you can actually see like a live view of the mix, and I can actually change the mix levels and show everything here. Change the panning for 8 channels back and forth, which is super cool. And then as far as changing tracks, if I go into here, this is kind of like my main track view, where I can solo, play, stop, and record, launch clips, change volume, and change tracks. And then in the mixer, scene, and clip launch, you can launch them all from just like one click away on the Stream Deck. But like if I go into scene, I can launch individual scenes here real fast, or again, change tracks, or go next, or back track, next or back scene rather, real fast. And inside a single track, which is like right now for the ARP, if I had more patterns selected, I could easily play them here, or I can actually record from here too, which is pretty useful. Good morning, Raider Rich. So yeah, normally I'm on this scene view here, and this allows me to change the scenes. And, you know, we can get the view. But then if I go over to app and into the little piano guy, it kind of has individual track back and forth. So kind of like when I'm kind of just playing by myself, I'll kind of keep it on this view a little bit here when I'm in Bitwig, because I can overdub on tracks. I can change volumes and all that. Yeah, it's kind of like a mini push. That's kind of how I'm using it. And this is all using a Mackie MIDI interface, actually, to get all the information here. Seems to work pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. And like down here for the pan, I can pan further left or further right. And I can change left or right by double clicking the button. And again, volume, if I click the upper, it goes up, lower, it goes down. So yeah, as far as Stream Deck, it works really well for that. And of course, for just changing tracks, I can do that here as well. So. So, I think I wanted to get into more rack stuff. I wanted to build up a drone and some other stuff for Sunday, unless you guys have more questions. Oh, Yamchu is asking Windows or Mac. Yeah, I'm running 2 Windows machines. The left one is the music one, and the right one is the stream one. Mr. Wabbit, it is not velocity sensitive, but I can use the 2 buttons to change which direction, or for volume at least, you know, increase gain, lower gain, and then the pan button underneath. If I hold it, it just kind of slowly pans left, or double click it, it'll slowly go right. So I have a click and double click action for the pan in particular. Okay, we're gonna try and repoint this GoPro without it jamming into my head while I try and patch. So we'll see how this goes. All right, I think that'll work. All right, so I'm gonna. Oh, also, Mr. Wabbit. Most of that Mackie Control stuff is from a Bitwig, I guess, preset, if you will, that someone sells for like 35 bucks online. Well worth it for just the icons itself, let alone all the Mackie Control stuff that you can bring in. So super cool. All right, and for the drone, I'm gonna kind of do my usual, which is with the 4MS, and we'll go from there. So the 4MS ensemble oscillator is a pretty hefty drone machine, and we're gonna take the output and we're gonna route it into a mixer. It's a stereo mixer. And it has two outputs, A and B. We're gonna put them both into the mixer. And this will allow it so when we route it through a filter later that we can kind of do some cool feedbacky stuff. And we're gonna go into the input 1 and 2 of my ES9, which is a little bit out of frame. The ES9 down here is my main interface for the computer. All right, and again, the stereo filter I'm using is the Ickery from Bastille. It's a great stereo filter that had some nice gain and other controls. Alright, so right now we're taking 4MS, going down into the stereo mixer. Stereo mixer is going to go into the stereo filter and to the ES9. Yeah, Andy, I have a couple Hero Sessions, which are basically GoPro 4s on the sensor side. They are not awful, honestly, but I think this GoPro 7 is the only one I'd probably use as a webcam, and to prevent it from shutting down on me repeatedly, I had to remove the battery because it kept on overheating on me. Okay, so now we're going to take the stereo filter and put it next door into the filter. All right, I'm turning down all the levels, and then I'm going to add it in Bitwig. Okay, and we're selecting in Bitwig. I have a lot of options here for inputs, and we're gonna go into stereo 1 and 2 because that's where I pulled it from. And turn on monitoring. So at this point, we should have audio coming through. And apparently I have messed up slightly because both babies are awake now. I thought I would not be too loud, but apparently I'm too loud. But the babies are now watching Mickey Mouse. Up in the top right, I have a wrong vector space, and the wrong vector space is bringing in a bunch of modulation from this chaotic noise source here, which makes a bunch of kind of super related phasing modulation sources, which is super cool. So I'm going to use that for modulating the ensemble oscillator. All right, and down below from the ensemble oscillator, we have this little mixer here, which is a scale and offset from here. So, and yeah, last week the babies did pretty good, but apparently I'm still too loud. And I think I should tune this oscillator, I think, before we get too much further, since I think it's in C right now, so we'll put it over to D. To do that, I'm going to add a tuner to the audio track. And the tuning on the 4MS is kind of picky. But I think I'm getting more used to it. All right, that looks pretty good. Yeah, Andy, I have not had any issues with Reaper crashing over this, or I'm sorry, a Bitwig crashing over this for the snail, but it is rather intensive, so I could see how that could do it. Now we're gonna take a little bit off with the filter. The two outputs from the 4MS oscillator I'm taking over to the mixer, putting it into the stereo filter and back down to the audio interface. But I have both inputs kind of panned a little bit left and a little bit right here. And now it has this output called Beyond, which is kind of a delta between the two. And I'm going to put that back over to the mixer as well into channel 3. Okay, so from here I'm going to add another modulation source. And this time that was into the Cross FM. Which is sounding pretty good. To kind of wet this up a little bit, I'm gonna send it into Starlab as well. So in this case, I'm gonna put it through my Liveform mixer, which already has the Starlab set up as a send here. Bring up the levels. And bring up the size of Starlab. A little bit more feedback, a little bit shimmer with regen. Alright, that's looking pretty good there. Alright, so the filter itself is taking the input. It does an envelope follower and routes that envelope follower to two different mod sources. One is for stereo panning and the other one is for filter modulation. The envelope follower is currently set to middle, so it responds somewhat fast, and the cutoff is fairly low with a little bit of resonance. And the input gain will go from 0 to 5x, and I currently have it about 2.5x. And from here, I have low pass control, which then I can also bring up and put into kind of high pass mode. But when it's kind of low, adding a bunch of resonance can be kind of cool. I'm gonna bring in some white noise now also into the mix of this guy. I'm gonna put that through the filter of the SV1 first. Maybe a little less resonance. All right, now I'm gonna bring in the white noise. Bring down the ARP so we can hear this a little bit better. All right, the noise in this case is white noise going into a Steiner filter. The Steiner filter is going out in bandpass mode. It has a little bit of resonance, and I have this big knob here, which I can kind of sweep and put the noise where I want. And obviously the resonance will kind of play in here, as well as the envelope followers mod. All right, so it's sitting kind of nice there. Mr. Wabbit asked, how long did it take for my rack to get where it is? Months, years? Definitely years. I went from a kind of smaller-ish rack to basically a structure 420, and I stuck in the structure 420 for about a year and a half, and then this rack was finished right around January, a little bit after January last year. And I'm trying to keep it probably at this size and not expand it anymore, or fill out that structure 420. And yeah, the filter knob on the SV1, being a big boy like that, I really like that filter. It's probably my favorite knob on the whole system. So I think at this point we have a pretty decent drone going. We have a lot of control actually still on the ensemble oscillator that we can get into. We can bring up a lot and get it going like super crunchy. But of course, we don't want to actually run it like that. But yeah, you know, it's capable of putting out a lot of filth. So hopefully I didn't ruin your speakers. Sorry. We'll kind of tame it back into control here. Okay. I think we'll keep it right about here. So, like I said, we'll have a couple good little noodle things we can do over this. I think the ARP will stay, and I think I will keep the drone as is, and we'll bring in a couple more things down here with my sequencer and the Symphonian. So let's get going on that. I guess maybe worth noting is my clock control, in which case I'm taking clock from the ML2, the Missing Link 2. This is actually originally Luke's when he had his rack going, but it connects via Wi-Fi to my system for Ableton Link and puts out a clock. That clock is coming down here into the Metropolix. The Metropolix is my main in-rack distribution of clocks, and I'll use that to kind of clock the Lifeform sequencers here next to it. And yes, Mr. Wabbit, I'm going to leave this patched up until Sunday. I'm working this week, so it'll likely not have a lot more playtime before we get there. And we can see now the Metropolix is gating these sequencers here. They are both 8-step sequencers. You can do a little bit of stuff on the back end to make it a little more interesting, but the end result is basically they're both 8-step, and I have the length on the right one at 7 steps. I'm going to run the output of the gate here into my Zadar for some envelopes that'll run, I think, the low pass gate for my braids. Alright, so sequencer goes to Zadar. Zadar is putting out a envelope that comes up to a dual low pass gate next to the braids. Next will be the Symphonian, and I'm going to use that as my main quantizer. So the sequencers, even though they are quantized, are going to go through the Symphonian because I can set more specific things like the Dorian scale and change all my sequencers at one time. Alright, so I'm using channels 2 and 3. We can see down here they're kind of lighting up as we hit the different scale degrees in this case C Dorian. So I'm gonna go ahead and change that to D Dorian. Which I believe my braids are still in tune to C. of 0 volts, so hopefully they'll be in tune when we go to actually do this. Taking the wave out of braids, we'll put it through the low pass gate and into the mixer. All right, I'm seeing good light up on my ES9 down here. Maybe you guys can't see it, but that's a good indication that I'm getting volume here, and I can then bring it into Bitwig. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the other ARP so we can kind of hear this a little better. All right, I have it coming in as a stereo pair. I think I'm gonna bring it down in 2 different channels so I can adjust the panning a little easier. All right, at this point we need to verify tuning is going good. So I'm gonna bring down everything to just the root, which should be D. And I did that on the Symphonian. I did that on Symphonian by just removing scale degrees of the quantizer channels. Hey, morning, Luke. And back in Bitwig, I'm going to add tuners to each of these channels and verify their reading D. And we can see here they're reading D pretty well. A little bit of minor tuning, I'll fix that now. And this one looks pretty locked in here as well. So at this point, I'll reconnect the CV control and we'll get it plugging. All right, and they're not doing much right now. They're just kind of plunking along, but we're going to go ahead and add some delay and reverb to them now in the box. And this is just using a dotted eighth note for delay and a convolution reverb. We'll duplicate this onto the other pluck. And we're gonna shorten up the pluck here a little bit, and we'll do that via Zadar. All right, that's about 120 milliseconds on each one. And I have control over here on the low pass gate for kind of like the max timbre I want out of it. Alright, and this will allow me to just kind of play with the sequencers as we go. For the Lifeform sequencers down here, when the sliders are all the way down, they don't make a note. And when they're up, they do make a note. And like I said, they're coming over here to the Symphonian, and in the Symphonian, they're getting put over to D Dorian. And with the length mismatch, the one being 8 stages and the other one being 7, you get the nice phasing that, you know, we're so happy with for the Berlin beds. And change the timbre up a little bit to kind of bring it up a little. And yeah, Luke, I really like braids a whole lot. I think I like it better than plates. Maybe like 55%, 60% now more than plates. I really do love the new update on plates, and I really like the percussive models in plates and how fast it is to set up. So I do like that I have both braids and plates. But I think for the plucks in this case, the dual braids up here has been great. All right, so I think that works pretty well. And like I said, I can bring in quite a bit here. I'll probably end up bringing some more modulation into those and maybe pass them through another low pass filter up here. All right, so in this case, the braid's now out of the low pass gate. It's gonna come up here to a Ripple clone, which is called Popple, which is a dual stereo version. And I'll send that through as kind of a post-pluck filter that I can modulate. All right, we are back in, and now we're going through Popple, and in Popple, I can adjust the cutoff and resonance. Which will be good for modulation. So I'm gonna pull one of the modulation sources from the wrong sound or wrong vector space up here, and the other one will be from Oct, which is gonna be a slower LFO. I'm gonna mix it in Miso and pull it out from there. Miso is one of those modules that I really got one of my first ones of, and it's a cheap module, and it's basically just 4 channels of mixing and offsetting, but it does really well, and is one of my most used modules, honestly. So if you guys are looking at a good mixing and offsetting module, it's super good. All right, so I think that's working out pretty well here. I really like this patch I have going on the Micro Monster. And the plucks are kind of phasing in and out nicely, I think, so. All right, and regrettably, I think at this point I have to leave. I had about an hour set apart for this. I'll probably do a little bit more on the modulation and get things going, but with people up in the house, and I actually have to go to work today for a little bit to make up some time from being sick the other week. So, yeah. Finish this up, go to work, and I'll see you guys probably on Sunday. Sunday. So if you guys have any questions, let me know right now before I leave, but otherwise, it was a pretty good day. All right, well, thank you guys. Hopefully we can do this Monday morning next week, although I might have to adjust my volume levels with my loud speaking so we don't wake up babies, I think.